Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I am going to be doing a review of The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper. Now this is a historical fiction book, first in a series, and it's set in Pompeii, so set in ancient Rome. We are essentially following a woman called Amara who gets stripped of her previous life and is essentially forced into prostitution. It's about her life in the Wolf Den, which is owned by her master, Felix. This is a story really about friendship, sisterhood. It's about survival, and it's very intense, I would say, but at the same time, not a lot actually happens, interestingly enough. And I had a bit of a weird experience with this book, because as I was reading the book, I quite enjoyed it, but the more and more I reflected on it, the more and more I realised that I didn't actually like it as much as I thought I did. When I was reading the book, and even towards the end of the book, I thought, okay, this is going to be at least a 4 stars. Now I'm thinking it's more like a 3 stars. But anyway, I'll let you know where I landed at the end of the review. Now let's jump into my review. My review is not going to be as structured. Normally I split between what I liked and what I didn't like. But there were things I liked and didn't like about the same topic. So I'm just going to kind of go through the different areas that I normally talk about and kind of let you know what worked for me and what didn't work for me. So in terms of the writing style, I really did not like it. I really did not like it. I found it very jarring. And the reason why I found it very jarring is that the book is set in the present tense. So we are seeing it through the eyes of Amara as things are happening, which I just do not like. I don't typically read books written in that way. And I think that is very much an intentional choice on my part. It felt very unnatural, and I prefer things in third-person narrative. I've realised I just don't like hearing it as though it's happening around me. I don't know why that is. It's just jarring for it to be said in the present tense. I just don't think it worked, and I'm really curious about other people who've read this book, whether you felt that way as well, or whether you needed like an adjustment, because I just couldn't get over it, and I think that really hindered my overall experience of the book. The funny thing is, I thought by the time I got to about 30%, I thought I'd got used to it, but then I just realised that I hadn't, and I was trying to like the book as much as I possibly could, because I liked what the book was trying to achieve. Whether it achieved it is another question, but I just didn't like it. I just did not like it. The world building was also quite limited. I personally would have liked more exploration of the world. You know, we're set in a Roman city, right? And it's set in Pompeii, which is a place that I actually studied quite a lot as part of my degree. I did a lot on Pompeii and ancient Herculaneum. And so I know a decent amount of both of these places. And so I would have expected just more. Like, it didn't feel like Pompeii. It just felt like a generic ancient city in Europe. I just feel like that was a really missed opportunity. That being said, it was easy to get through, and once I did adjust to the present tense a little bit, I was able to get through it quicker, and then I realised that I wasn't actually okay with it. Like, I'm kind of contradicting myself here, and I'm fully aware of that, but it just felt very jarring to me, that present tense focus. I just did not enjoy it. But like I said, it is easy to get through, and I think if you can get over that, and if you're okay with that, like, I think you'll really enjoy this book. But for me, it was just really, really hard to get through because of that reason. So, you know, bear that in mind, that my review is impacted by that very specific thing. The other thing that I will mention is that I just don't think it was paced that well. I think the ending felt so rushed. Like, the middle part of the book is so slow. Again, I don't mind that if I like the characters, but it just felt so slow, like so slow. I feel like the middle, like 50, 100 pages could have been taken out. I think it could have been a lot tighter. And I feel like the resolution just came out of nowhere, especially because this is a trilogy. So I would have expected that resolution to maybe have come a bit later on in the series. But yeah, it just did not feel justified to me for it to happen at that point, because I feel like it missed like 50 steps for us to get there, and like we just didn't go through any of those steps. So that was really, really jarring as well. Let's move on to characters. Now, the main character, Amara, is quite an interesting character. I quite like being in her head. She's trying to reconcile her past life, where she was very privileged. Her father was a doctor, which was like the pinnacle. And, you know, she lived a life of comfort. She came from a very wealthy family. And she's trying to reconcile that with her not so privileged present, where, you know, she's working as a prostitute and she's basically getting paid paycheck to paycheck. They're basically slaves in a way, because they have zero freedom, zero control, zero independence. And she's fighting for her survival, right? And like I said, this book is a book about survival. It's about women surviving. And I think she is quite a compelling character, and she's a good vehicle in which to tell the story through. Our next character, Felix, he's basically our villain of the story. He's our main antagonist, and he's just a bad person. He's just a horrible person. He sees women as commodities, and he doesn't care about them. He uses their vulnerability against them. He does this with one character in particular, whose name I won't mention in case I spoil it. But he's just horrible. He just represents everything that's wrong with men. And I think Harper did a really good job of capturing the sometimes quite mundane evilness that men sometimes have. And I think Felix is a really good example of that. And by mundane evilness, I mean that on the surface, he might seem like someone who's trying to help, and he might have like these warped justifications in his head as to why he's doing what he's doing. But he's just a straight up evil guy. And it's just very horrible to read, because as a woman, we've all probably met versions of Felix, obviously not in the same realm of things, for me at least, but I've met versions of Felix, and it's just, it's very like close to home in many regards, unfortunately. But again, I think it's a very realistic portrayal as well, which I have to give kudos to the author for achieving that. There is a secondary cast of female characters. The two that I'm going to shout out are Victoria and Dido. They were particularly compelling for different reasons. Victoria is, you know, very beautiful. She's kind of the pinnacle of the group of women that we follow. You know, she's the most beautiful. She's the best at what she does. And she's kind of Felix's pet in a way. And Dido is the kind of opposite of that. She's much more ethereal, much more innocent. She's kind of the opposite of Victoria in many ways. But they both have their own struggles. They both have their own kind of inner battles to get through. And I think Amara has different relationships with both of them. I just think it was a really interesting exploration of the dynamics of this woman that we follow, Amara, and her interactions with two very different women as well. And I have to say, I did really enjoy that. I do like stories about women. I feel like we're getting more of them now, which is amazing. And I feel like Elodie Harper did a really good job of capturing that dynamic between this wide group of women, but particularly those three. So I did really like that. There is a romance element to this book that I didn't really like. I wish there had been zero romance in this book. We have a character called Menanda, I think is his name. And he's a slave, and he kind of has a similar background to Amara, where he had a pretty privileged life, but then he got thrown into this life of slavery, and his life is, you know, it's not great. And they basically fall in love, but it just felt very surface level. We barely get any time between the two of them. I just feel like we'd had more time with the two of them together. I wish we'd had more time with Menanda. I think it would have been amazing to have him as a POV, as a man's perspective in this book about women. Like, I just think it would have been really interesting to get that comparison point. Maybe we do in the future books, I don't know. But it just felt like a spare part. Like, I feel like you could have easily have removed him from the story and it wouldn't have impacted the overall story or Amara's arc. So it's kind of begs the question of like, why is he even here then? I just feel like maybe he was added in to add a romance element to it. But again, like I said, I just think it was pointless. I just don't think he needs to be there. I liked his character. I just don't think he needed to be there in the capacity in which he was written, unfortunately. Now we're going to talk about themes, and you know, I've touched on quite a lot of it already, but there's this whole idea of having to reconcile your past with your present, how that impacts your identity, friendship, sisterhood, loyalty, but also protection of oneself and balancing loyalty with that protection of oneself so that you're not screwing yourself over. Survival, lack of agency, lack of being able to make one's own decisions, having independence, all of these different things. These are all things that I love explored in my books. I think it grappled with it pretty well. I'm interested to see how Harper expands on these in the following books, which I will read. I'm not in a rush. I think she did a good job at like presenting the themes to us at least. So I did give this book a kind of 3 to 3.5 stars. I just thought it was okay. Like, I think it's a good start. I just think that present tense was just very jarring to me and really, really hindered my overall enjoyment of the book. I will definitely give book 2 and book 3 a go. I have them both. It's just a matter of when, not if. I'm not in a rush to read them. It doesn't end on a cliffhanger. You could definitely read the first book as a standalone. But I am curious to see what happens to Amara, especially after the kind of ending, which, like I said, I would have expected to have seen that happen at least in book 2 or maybe even in book 3. So I'm curious to see where her arc is going to go now. So I will definitely pick it up, and I'll definitely do reviews of it once I get to them. It's just not going to be anytime soon. Now, I know a lot of people in the fantasy community have read this book, so I'm really curious to kind of hear what you guys think. Drop me down a comment down below if you have read it, and yeah, I'm really curious to have a discussion about this one, and if anybody else had any issues with the writing style. Thanks for watching, folks. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.